Welcome to Mind Love, episode 17. Today's episode is all about the benefits of human touch from a professional cuddler.
Loneliness is the biggest health risk, and it only takes 20 seconds of hugging to release oxytocin.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
Hi friends, I hope you're all feeling as amazing as I am today. I'm actually just coming out of a really amazing visioning event that I went to this weekend, put on by my husband's success coach, Mark Dama, so I'm feeling extra fired up. One of my favorite things about living in the LA area is the huge mix of happenings and events happening within just a few miles of my house. One of my favorite things to do is actually scrolling through Facebook events just to see what cool things catch my eye. One of these recently was a group cuddle event. The description said it was perfect for people who like hugs, check, and who are looking to relax and unwind, double check. Of course, this sent me on a Google roller coaster for the next hour, but not only were there cuddle events, you could also hire your own personal one-to-one cuddler. The YouTube videos around the topic actually seemed pretty solid, and I couldn't help but listen to the chief cuddle officer's soothing voice and think, yep, I'd cuddle that. Those who know me know I am eccentrically open-minded, and so I started to see, well, human touch is a basic need and not everyone has it, so why wouldn't it be a great idea? Seriously though, children who don't get enough physical touch usually have ranging psychological issues. Studies show loneliness and unhappiness go hand in hand, and even just getting a cat increases your lifespan. Yet somehow there's a nagging stigma that goes along with paying for a physical connection. Even paying for a non-sexual date wouldn't fly with some people. Well, today, we're going to talk to a professional cuddler. Yep, the one in all those YouTube videos I found. Her name is Fei Wyatt. Fei is the Chief Cuddle Officer at Cuddle Sanctuary, which is a professional cuddle service here in Los Angeles that they like to call the Affection Spa. Her bio on the website states that she already loves you unconditionally, and after meeting her, I'm going to accept that as fact. People describe their sessions with Fei like spending time with a good friend who really cares about you. She really believes in the healing power of presence, non-judgment, and affectionate touch, and with a background in psychology, she's experienced in working with trauma, grief, depression, attachment, relationships, intimacy, and even LGBTQ issues. So today, 3 key things we'll learn are what it's like in the life of a professional cuddler, and don't worry, I dive into all those questions that you're dying to ask her, the scientific benefits of cuddling and human touch, and how you can develop deeper intimacy in your relationships, even if they're just platonic. Plus, Fei was kind enough to give me my own session, which I'll tell you all about. But before we dive in, I want to invite you to sign up for the Morning Mind Love. It's our email list where you get short daily reminders of your own beauty, worth, and power to start each day with a positive mindset and keep your vibes up between episodes. To sign up, visit mindlove.com and sign up right there on the homepage. Plus, you'll get some amazing free gifts when you do. Your first gift is our exclusive printable power lists, which is an awesome free booklet based on proven principles from the most successful people in the world and from some of our favorite guests. Second, you'll get a free guided affirmation meditation set at the miracle tone of the solfeggio scale. If you don't know what that is, it's a specific tone said to help attract love, health, and abundance into your life. Set along with these affirmations to rewire your neural pathways can be super powerful in making big transformations in your life. Listeners have been absolutely loving the Morning Mind Love, by the way, so be sure to head to mindlove.com to sign up and access your free gifts. If you're out and about and can't visit the website, just text the word morning to 444-999. That's morning to 444-999, and we'll get you set up for the email list. I'll see you there. And now let's welcome professional cuddler Fei Wyatt to the show.
Thank you for having me today, Melissa.
I want to start out by asking, how did you get into professional cuddling?
So I have a background in psychology, and I always knew that I had this sort of gift, if you want to call it that, for kind of really unconditionally accepting people. And I was always looking for a way to put that to use, to magnify it in some way. And when I first discovered professional cuddling as a job, it was like, the clouds opened up and I had found my calling. So it was, I wasn't sure that I could do it or that it would be the right fit for me. And so I just went to a Cuddle event just to check it out. And in the very first event, just things clicked for me. I realized that I'm a high intimacy person. I've always been looking for more closeness, more realness, and more vulnerability in the world. And something about cuddling opens up that door. And I decided that, that's where I want to be.
What types of jobs did you have before you got into the world of professional cuddling?
I had a lot of nurturer type jobs. I was a teacher, so I taught preschool, and I was looking at becoming a marriage and family therapist.
The people that hire a professional cuddler or go to the professional cuddling events, what problem is it solving for them?
It really varies on the client, but I would say a large majority of folks who are coming to find our services are looking for connection. So lots of folks are feeling isolated, or they're just at the point where they're recognizing that there is something that they need in their life that they're not getting. And often it looks like relationships. So they'll come because they're recently divorced, they have lost a loved one. I have quite a few clients who have lost their loved ones to really tragic deaths, or just simply, coming to me from a breakup. And I think that's where that sort of loss is the most punctuated. But then there are also folks who just realize that they haven't been prioritizing connection in their lives because they're incredibly busy, incredibly career focused, and they know that they need to care for their own wellness. So that's where I meet most people, where they realize, you know what? Nobody's taking care of me, and I got to do something about that.
As a society, we have a lot of personal boundaries. And when I was traveling the world, I realized that Americans are even a little bit more extreme than most other countries. We're known to have this protective bubble around us. When we start to break those boundaries, what are the benefits that human connection has on us as a whole?
Oh, it's a really tricky thing because, touch, we really acknowledge now, is a huge physical and also emotional need. That it's not one or the other, it's both, right? And when we recognize that we are not getting touch, we still have a lot of shame around how we are able to access it. So my job, it really pushes people's buttons. The idea of paying for this sort of intimacy, right? Even though it's platonic, it does challenge this notion of where we're allowed to get it. Everybody accepts that touch and connection is important, and we somehow assign that to a romantic partner, right? So it's like the people who judge my work, I would say the most, are people who are getting their needs met through relationships. If you are lonely, if you need a hug, if you want somebody to hold you, the place that you're allowed to go to is your partner. And one night stands are a thing. You can do that, but you can't mix the two. And so the idea of like paying for touch is so challenging, and yet the benefits are huge. Let's start with just oxytocin. It takes 20 seconds of hugging to release oxytocin. The benefits of oxytocin is basically the opposite of any of the detriments of stress, because the number one job that oxytocin does is it decreases your cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. And so along with that goes with decreased inflammation, better sleep, better heart health. If you can measure your heart rate variability, it's called HRV. It's a really good measure for your how well your nervous system is working. Oxytocin really improves that, and it helps your immune system. So there are a lot of these physiological benefits to human connection that comes from touch.
It's funny because, as you said, somehow there's a stigma associated with paying for human touch, like it's desperate or weird, even though there are only positive benefits. But on the flip side, most people have no problem paying for pills to sort of numb the same need, regardless of the crazy list of harmful side effects that go with those.
Yeah. We have a comfort around the store-bought neuroreceptors, right? And the truth is our bodies are these incredibly rich pharmacies. And all you need is just the right trigger, the right environment to produce the stuff that we have in our own bodies already. And of course, some of us need help. However our bodies are wired, I'm going to say pharmaceuticals can be incredibly helpful, but for a large majority of us, a lot of this healing can really come from getting help through connection.
I imagine that it also comes down to the feeling of worthiness for some people. Relationships can act as a sort of validation, like this person thinks I'm worthy of spending a lifetime together. But people end up alone for all kinds of reasons. Building a career, their partner died, they wanted to travel the world solo. Not everyone even wants a relationship. But the need for human touch goes beyond lifestyle choices. So I think it's wrong to judge people who have this need that you're able to solve in a safe and loving way, especially if you don't know what it's like to be alone.
Yeah, loneliness is the biggest health risk. And it is so unacceptable. There is so much shame that we assign to folks who are lonely because we look at that as a failing of some sort. Like, oh, you're lonely. That means that you're not good enough. And so many of the clients that I see, they come to me with that shame. It's very hard for them to get to the point where they reach out to somebody and say, I'm lonely and I could use some support, because what does that mean about me? Does that mean that I am not attractive and I'm undesirable? Does that mean that, I have failed at this basic human task of finding community and connection? And so just getting past that is a huge leap. When people think about clients of professional cuddling, the number one thing that they imagine are, desperate, lonely people who can only get what they need by paying for it. And the truth is, at least the truth of my experience as a practitioner and seeing these clients, that these are people who are taking initiative in their lives. These are some of the most vulnerable, authentic people that I have ever met, because they are willing to look at a need in their life without shame and with just a whole lot of love. And they are doing their work of taking care of themselves. These are people who are incredibly great at self-care.
How do cuddling and meditation relate? Do they share any of the same benefits?
Oh, I would say hugely so. I call cuddling my meditation practice. There is cuddling well really demands presence. It's really difficult to have your mind racing 100 miles an hour when you are in deep presence with someone else. When somebody is there fully in their body and invites you to inhale deeper and to slow down your breath. And it is one of the very few things that we do with our body that doesn't involve doing. So meditation is one of them, right? Or sleeping might be another. I think cuddling goes right up there. All the other things that we do for health, like yoga, exercise, those are things that involve active doing. And cuddling is one of the few ways where you can be in contact with your body, just really paying attention to what's going on with it without exerting yourself while you can be in that rest and repair state. I think it's beautiful.
With some of my closest girlfriends, one thing I love about being a woman is that we're okay with, cuddling up to our girlfriends sometimes. And it's just in a platonic way, but a lot of people aren't comfortable with that, especially the male gender. Why do you think we have so many personal boundaries?
Oh, there's a lot of kind of cultural norms that go against the idea of platonic touch to begin with. I think in our society, we are so sex focused and really touch deprived at the same time. Touch has been so overly sexualized in our society. What that means is that when you engage in touch with somebody else, it can be really confusing what that's about and what that is a promise of or isn't a promise of, right? And so that is one of the barriers. It's hard to set the stage for something that is just a platonic experience. It's not something that we talk a lot about in the world. Another thing is, I have to say, we have to acknowledge that there has been a lot of our own boundaries getting crossed. And so sometimes our fear of touch is a response to our trauma around getting touch that we don't want. And that's a big piece of it. When people come to our events for the first time is, am I going to be touched by somebody I don't want to be touched by? Am I going to have to sit there and tolerate, touch? And we fear this because so much of the touch that we experience in our life is unwanted. It's unwanted. It's not relaxing. It is crossing our barriers and our boundaries. So the only way to create this sort of safe environment where the touch is welcome and relaxed is to set up a stage where boundaries are really enforced and encouraged. At Cuddle Sanctuary, we say that we honor boundaries with enthusiasm. So what that means is that if there's something that I don't want, so for example, let's say I don't like my face being touched, that is something that is on me to communicate. And when somebody asks if they can touch my face, that I'm going to say no. And no is a complete sentence. You don't need to say anything else besides that. And our practice is when we receive a no from somebody else to say something kind back, like great boundaries, or my favorite is, thank you for taking care of yourself.
Oh, I love that. Honestly, I wish I would have developed that skill in college to have this safe space to practice boundaries and saying no to people, especially as a recovering people pleaser. It just seems like a really healthy skill to practice.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest takeaway that folks have. They're surprised because they came for the cuddling, right? And then they left with really strong boundaries. And it's a paradox. Really strong boundaries means that actually what ends up happening is you get exactly what you want, nothing more and nothing less. It's pretty amazing.
How do the group cuddling events differ from hiring a personal cuddler one-to-one?
What they have in common is cuddling and connection. And the structure is simply what looks different. So when you go to an event, it is a social thing. So there are some social dynamics. It's a sort of workshop-like environment. And most of the interaction that you have will be with other attendees. So you get to navigate a room full of people and figure out, who do I want to interact with? How do I want to interact with them? Will I spoon with one person? Will I spoon with a whole row of people? Will I just sit and chat? Will we hold hands? So it's kind of a little bit of a buffet that you have to navigate on your own.
So if you're going to a group cuddle event, I imagine that both people are looking for that personal connection. And while I love the learning to speak your boundaries side, what does it feel like for the person on the other side? How do you recommend people avoid feeling rejected?
It is a whole part of what we teach when folks come. The thing that we say is your number one job is to take care of yourself, right? And so every no that you say is actually a yes to something else that you want. So we teach them not to take on another person's experience, because I think that's what we do all the time is we compromise our own happiness because we somehow have gotten the idea that it's our job or our responsibility to take care of how somebody else feels. And ultimately, that's our job.
So it's actually a good practice on both sides of the coin, where you are learning to speak your boundaries and also learning to respect other people's boundaries.
Exactly. It's a two-way street. And I find that as I get better at enforcing my own boundaries and learning how not to martyr myself for somebody else, that I get a lot better at really celebrating when I meet somebody else's boundary too, because all of a sudden I see how great they are at taking care of themselves and how much I can trust them and their honesty.
Do you ever have couples coming into the Cuddle events?
Yes, we do. We do have couples who come, and they are, we say to them what your agreements are with each other while you're there. Some couples are happy to cuddle with each other and only each other while they're there, and we highly welcome that. That's great. And others are comfortable with other situations where they're happy to be in a room with, cuddling other people, or maybe they only want to cuddle other people together, as long as they communicate that beforehand so that there are no hurt feelings. Coming to a cuddle event is not a good time to renegotiate your relationship terms.
That makes sense. I could see that ending pretty badly.
Yeah, but almost everybody who shows up at a cuddle event is already pretty open-minded and pretty open-hearted. So it's usually a lot of connection to be found.
You said that being a professional cuddler requires a lot of presence. Is it draining? Can you get burnt out? And if so, how do you counteract those feelings?
Yeah, absolutely. The work of professional cuddling is part of a helping profession for sure. And it does take a lot of emotional labor to really be present for folks. I mean, my clients come in and I hold them through some really difficult things. Many of my clients come from really troubled childhoods and they carry that trauma in their bodies. And lots of my clients are going through really difficult things in their lives. Some of the things include, relationships that are failing. Some of them include relationships that have failed, people that they have lost, job situations that are tough. And my job is to sit there and hold it safely with them. So self-care is a big part of my own job as a professional cuddler. It's my job to get cuddled, because if I don't have somebody else taking care of me, then I am going to burn out so fast and I'm not going to be able to be present for them. And they're not going to be able to trust me to hold all of the pain that they have, right? So yeah, I go to therapy. I take care of my body. I get plenty of rest. Part of my job is to not overschedule myself. It's a lot of work, but it's been the kind of work that has really challenged me to grow as a person in the way that I need to grow. And I can tell you, as a people pleaser, that is something that I have hugely benefited from.
What other personal benefits have you gotten from being a professional cuddler? How do you see yourself from before compared to the ways it's changed you for the better now?
Yeah. So the ways that I have grown, number one is definitely my communication skills around boundaries. I don't tolerate things in my life as much as I used to. And you'll be surprised how much we can tolerate. I don't say yes to things unless I'm a hell yes, or unless I'm very clear about what I am participating in, both in touch and also in everyday life. So socially, I'm a lot more honest about where I want to be, who I want to be around, what I want it to look like. And I'm a lot more compassionate in the way that I communicate that, because I don't wait until I have completely burnt out and I've been pushed too far before I speak up. So that's one way. Another way that I have grown in my life as a professional cuddler is just my relationship with my body. I'm in my body every day for my work. And I'll tell you, when I've had 2 days even without seeing clients, I noticed a difference, because it's such a meditative practice, holding such deep presence with somebody else while I'm in my body, while we're getting touch. When I don't have it, I can feel my brain getting cluttered again and my body sort of being out of sync. So there's a lot of physical and emotional wellness that's been built into my life as a professional cuddler. So that's been amazing. And I am much more honest and much more open-hearted. One of the challenges that you face as a professional cuddler is learning how to connect with anybody. Now, I really believe that I can see any client, and I didn't used to because I'm human and I have biases, and there are people that I was afraid of that I didn't know if I could connect to. And being a professional cuddler, I've really leaned into this unconditional love thing, and it has challenged me to really look at my own biases and learn to set them aside and see people for who they are, for being human and beautiful, because everybody is perfect the way they are.
Were there any issues that arose or areas that you realized needed work that professional cuddling ended up highlighting for you?
Oh, absolutely. It's called countertransference. Essentially is when, my own issues come up in a session and oh my goodness, I have to face that. So that's why I go to therapy. I have a desire to be seen a certain way. I want to be wise and known for my skills. And I have a desire to be accepted. I have things that I want to receive in the world from people around me, validation. So, going to therapy is helpful.
What type of people make the best professional cuddlers?
I would say that the people who make the best professional cuddlers are the ones who love cuddling to begin with. And this would be a horrible job for somebody who just doesn't like being close to people. And I would say it's somebody who is able to set themselves aside for a moment and really be there for somebody else. I think a lot of people are drawn to professional cuddling because they need cuddling in their lives. And I think that's a wonderful way to find this work. And also, I think it's important to realize that this job is all about holding space for somebody else. So this is a type of person that knows how to be completely focused on another person. And I would say somebody who's willing to sit with an open heart, with a lot of compassion and a lot of non-judgment, because that's probably the number one thing that helps our clients, is coming to a place where they are not judged at all.
Hold that thought. The Mind Love podcast is supported by Castbox, the fastest growing, highest rated podcast app on iOS and Android. Castbox has over 50 million free episodes that more than 13 million users download and listen to wherever, whenever. Castbox has also pioneered a brand new way to search. All you have to do is enter a keyword or phrase, and Castbox will search all show titles and transcripts of every single episode to deliver exactly what you're looking for. So head over to your app store, download Castbox, and try it for yourself today. How do you handle sexual arousal? I mean, we're all human. I'm sure it's had to come up at least a few times, especially with the male clients. What do you do in those situations?
Oh, it's not a big deal at all. When I have that phone conversation with them before I see them, we talk about what they expect. So right off the bat, I'm only seeing clients that have an intention for a platonic experience. And just because you have the intention doesn't mean that your body is going to be on board. And that's okay. I'm not afraid of sexuality. I'm not afraid of arousal. What I care about is that we're on the same page looking for the same experience. So what I say to a client is very simply, arousal is just a natural response to your body experiencing something it likes. And a lot of times, you can have an erection or erection without it being about sexual arousal. It can just be a physiological response. So for me, it's all good. It's wonderful. You get to celebrate that your body is doing its thing. And then all we do is we just make a shift. So what that means is we can shift positions. We can change up what we're doing. We can change the way that we're breathing and draw our breath into our heart or something like that. And also that I kind of open the door for us to talk about it openly. And there is nothing that is as useful as kind of disrupting that sort of energy as having a conversation about it.
So are you trained on a number of cuddle positions?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's something that I teach as well. So it's not essential to do the work. A lot of professional cuddlers come into this work not really having a vocabulary around what positions are what, because that's not really important. At the end of the day, is just creating connection with the client. But I do happen to, I think last I counted was something like 90 plus cuddle positions that I use. And they're great because they're kind of like yoga poses in the sense that each pose will evoke a certain emotion or certain type of feeling in your body. And different cuddle positions can do that too.
Okay, so what are the top few favorites that maybe we can describe for listeners to try with their partners or friends at home?
Sure. One of the most favorite ones of all time is called the lap of luxury. So one person can be the lap and the other person can be what we call the luxury. So the person who is the lap would sit up really comfortably and stretch their legs in front of them. And one of the legs will be basically a pillow, like a body pillow that you can kind of hug onto. So whoever is receiving this position will lay on their side and put the head in their lap sideways and kind of grab onto that leg. And if you want to, the person who's sitting up can kind of, how would I describe this? Pull their knee up so that they can put their leg against the back of the other person and hold them really secure. It's a really beautiful position, and it brings out that sort of like inner child that wants to be held and nurtured. And you can play with their hair and caress them.
Play with their hair? That sounds amazing. It's like my favorite pastime from childhood. I still make my mom do it sometimes, to be honest. Or what our family called back tickling. So my grandma would just do the light touch on my back for hours. She said it was better than a babysitter.
Come over. I'll do a session with you, and that's what we can do. Just like the whole hour, we'll tickle your back.
I did take Fei up on her offer, so I'll tell you about that at the end.
Yeah. A lot of people think that a professional cuddling session is all about spooning, and they'll be surprised that it's not. Some clients come and we just sit and we chat. Maybe we hold hands, maybe we don't. Sometimes we just eye gaze in silence. Sometimes we do fun, like I've done these like fun little games that you play as a kid, kind of like the back tickling where you draw pictures on the back. Yeah, it's like a sandbox.
So it's really more about just the human connection component rather than even a full body embrace.
Yes, exactly. We really, consent is such a huge part of what we do. We really believe in creating an environment where, because it's all about you, you can be getting only exactly the kind of touch that you want. Nothing more and nothing less.
That just sounds so liberating, because even in relationships, one person might come up to the other and you might wonder, oh, what do they expect right now? Am I in the mood for that? Or whatever it may be. But I'm never going to get that way with my dog, for instance. I know exactly what's expected of me in that relationship. Really, though.
Sometimes you're allowing and sometimes you're receiving, right? So there's a give and take. That's why being able to go to a professional and say, this is a space just for me, that's really powerful. It's like you can have a conversation with a friend, but most of the time you're not going to spend your entire friendship just talking about you, unless you go to a therapist and pay them. So.
I mean, I'm sure we've all had a few friends that didn't understand that's how the friendship wasn't supposed to go. When someone hires you, you said that you check to make sure you're both on the same page in regards to the needs. Are there any red flags for your own safety or to avoid an awkward situation?
No, there are so many red flags. I don't know if we can go through the whole list. But generally speaking, when I see a client that is a good fit for the service, it is very apparent because sexuality is sort of not relevant. When somebody's coming to me for emotional healing, when they're coming to me because they're looking to relax, it just doesn't come up in conversation. And that's not what everybody's looking for. Some folks are looking for something different, which is also beautiful. They're looking for, a beautiful woman that they can connect with, that they can hold. If they, comment on my appearance a lot, there's something there that we can talk about. At this point in my career, I feel really comfortable seeing most anybody, but the conversation's really just about making sure that they're not going to be disappointed when they come into session with me. So I look for signs that they're able to talk about what they need clearly, because if they can't, if they're not able to articulate why they're seeking my service, a lot of the time it's because they do have some shame around their own sexual need and they're not able to voice it. And people who have a sexual need and are happy to voice it, I trust, because, they can talk about it and they're addressing it directly. They don't have to address it indirectly in the wrong place.
I had a really close guy friend who was really vocal about hiring adult service providers. And first of all, something about just him being open with that started to change my view. But then coming to the realization that they were both getting exactly what they wanted from the encounter with no confusion, which can't always be said in relationships, especially in the beginning. I totally don't mean to directly compare that to what you do, but there are some similarities there.
Yeah, I love that, that he knows what he needs. And that's the thing. There is no shame, right? He doesn't have any shame about paying for something. The agreement is so clear. And a lot of times when we realize that we need something, we put ourselves in these situations that get really murky. And we look for sex when that's not what we're looking for. What we really want is to cuddle. Or we get into relationships when what we really want is a touch. And so it gets really confusing sometimes, and it's really helpful to be able to isolate. This is the thing that I need right now, and to say, if I can just pay money for it, then I don't have to go through the whole jumping through hoops that takes a lot more of my time and energy, and it's not something that I want to be spending my time doing. Yeah.
I think having more experiences like this might even help some people find those boundary lines that might have been blurred over the years. I know there are plenty of people out there, myself included at one time, who would wake up in the morning and regret the night before, but in the moment you get swept up in those feelings of being held or feeling loved or feeling worthy.
Yeah. Oh, that feeling of worthiness is inevitable when you are held and fully just accepted in the moment. And I hear this over and over again, that we make better decisions around our romantic lives and our sex lives when our baseline touch needs are being met.
I can totally see that. When people get lonely, they might settle on who they even want as a partner, which is a huge decision to make. But you shouldn't make that just because you're lonely. It should be because you see that person fits into your life.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not acting out of hunger, right? We're coming from a place of centeredness and fullness.
Yes, it's like you're riding down that highway of life and you're starving and the only thing around is a Jack in the Box. So you get a burger instead of the organic salad that your body really needs.
That's exactly right. I love that. The Jack in the Box.
Do you have any tips on how listeners that are interested might be able to provide a more mindful physical touch within their friendships, even if they're not in a relationship right now?
Yeah. Having a conversation is really all it takes. The only way to be able to get connection is if you make a space for it. And that's in any form, right? So it's good to kind of approach a friend and say, hey, I really am kind of into cuddling, and I'm wondering if that's your thing and if that's something that we can do. And, really define that as being non-sexual. This is really platonic. And in that, we mean that it's non-erotic and non-romantic. So the first step is to recognize that you need it, and then set the stage for getting what you want by finding the people who want the same things as you. And that's easier said than done. I recognize that it's scary navigating that. Even in our relationships, I have a husband, and I don't think I had cuddled him this mindfully before I started this work. We cuddle sort of incidentally, right? While watching TV, while before sex, after sex, going to bed, all of those things. But really setting aside the time to say, actually, this is a thing that deserves some room in and of itself. Kind of like you make time for yoga or meditation. It's like making the time and space to cuddle.
What was that conversation with your husband like when you said, I think I'm going to go cuddle other people? What were his concerns, if any?
My safety and what the service would look like. And there was a lot of, back and forth. At first, when I first started my work, I only cuddled other women. And then I realized that I wanted to be of service to the folks who really needed me, which included the population of men. So and I'm really fortunate that he is incredibly supportive, even if it's not his thing.
Are there ways that listeners at home can touch themselves in a non-sexual way where they might tap into some of these same benefits?
So a couple of things when you talk about that. It's not going to be the same as being in connection with another person. Apparently, the way that our neurology works is that when you are doing the motions of touching, that takes up so much of your brain processing power that the feeling of actually receiving the touch is different. That's why you can't tickle yourself. But that being said, there are a lot of benefits to self-massage that are being researched today. So I would say if you can make this almost like a meditative space for yourself and take a moment to breathe, slow down your breathing, and tune into your body, what you may notice is that your body will have messages for you about needs that it has. So you may notice that there is a tension in your shoulder. So go ahead and massage that, right? You may notice that you are wanting to be squeezed. So what's really helpful is to have a really big blanket that you can kind of wrap yourself in. And you may notice that you're wanting a kind of slow caress, and you can do that. A lot of times we just don't even sit down to check in with what it is that we want or need.
Well, thank you so much for providing all of this knowledge on the benefits of cuddling and human touch. I think we all know that it is important, but we may not have articulated the depth of the need or realized that there were options out there. Do you have any parting advice for our listeners?
Yeah, just simply that it only takes 20 seconds of hugging to release oxytocin. I think there is a researcher, his name is Paul Zak, and his prescription is 8 hugs a day. We make a lot of priorities in our life around our wellness that includes like sleep and exercise and food. And a lot of times the thing that doesn't get on that list that should is human connection and touch. So I just want to encourage everybody to look at that as another wellness piece in their lives and to actually put it on your schedule. And so I've learned to put connection on the calendar. It seems a little counterintuitive, but it's super important. And connection can look like lunch with a friend where you get a hug. Or going to see a friend's dog where you can get some cuddles there, or going dancing or doing yoga. Those are things that put us in connection with our bodies and with other people. So put it on the calendar. It's too important to neglect.
8 hugs a day. I love that. I'm already tracking my water intake, so I just need to add one more streak habit on my Apple Watch. Totally doable. Now, I said I'd tell you all about my experience, and it was amazing. I was a little bit nervous, to be honest with you, being that it was my first pro cuddle session, but from the moment she opened the door, Fei had a really welcoming presence that just put me at ease. The room that we had the session in was super cozy, and she basically just guided me through some different positions. First, we just sat back to back and kind of swayed side to side, which I think was a really good intro to get me more comfortable. And she asked me what conversation level I'd like and what my comfort was with touch. And I told her that I'm just open-minded and I just want the whole experience. My favorite positions were Big Bear, Little Bear, where she sat propped in the corner of the kind of couch bed thing we were on, and I sat with my back facing her between her legs, and she just light touched my arms and played with my hair. About 5 to 10 minutes into the session, I felt like my body was just melting. And at the end, I even teared up. I felt a little bit emotional. It just felt really good to have somebody be so present with me for that long of a time, just paying attention to me, making sure I felt good, and making sure I was relaxed, heard, and loved. I can totally understand why people are repeat customers. If you want to learn more about Fei Wyatt, you can find her at cuddlesanctuary.com or at Cuddle Sanctuary on social media. If you loved this episode, please make sure to subscribe, and if you have a moment, leave a review. They're super helpful for the growth of this podcast and to find more amazing guests like Fei. I also want to remind you to sign up for the Morning Mind Love, our short daily reminder emails of your own beauty, worth, and power, so you can start each day with a positive mindset and keep your vibes up between episodes. You can sign up at mindlove.com right there on the homepage. Or if you're out and about, just text the word morning to 444-999. That's morning to 444-999, and we'll get you signed up on the email list. Plus, you'll get 2 free gifts that we mentioned at the beginning of this episode. As always, thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.